Okay, so Module 4. In this module, we're going to be looking at the different types of co-ops. And there's different types in terms of the ownership structure and also in terms of the different industrial sectors that they operate in. So cooperative types, there's worker co-ops, consumer, producer, multi-stakeholder, and nonprofit. So I'm going to go through and explain these different types of co-ops. So the worker co-ops, they're owned by the employees, but not everybody who works there, has to be a member or has to be an owner, but they are owned by the employees. The workers are required to purchase a share in the cooperative, and sometimes it can be prohibitive, but usually it isn't. Profits are shared with workers in relation to the hours worked. And workers develop their governance skills and have control over their workplaces. So in this slide, you see here there are quite a wide array of examples of different types of worker cooperatives in the various provinces in Canada. And I'll just point out a couple. There's a Co-op Taxi in Prince Edward Island, and there's Just Us Coffee shops, which you've heard of, I'm sure, here in Nova Scotia. So now, moving to the next type of cooperative, Canadian consumer cooperatives, they're owned by the customers, and they sell products and services to their members, and when dividends are issued, they're given in proportion to the volume of purchases made. So examples would be all credit unions, there's the Arctic Co-op, the cooperators, large insurance company, national insurance company in Canada, they're in every province. So those would be consumer co-ops. The next type of co-op are producer co-ops. So they're owned by the producers, such as farmers, fishers, woodlot owners, etc. So members produce the goods and they sell them to the co-op. The co-op then packages, processes, markets, and resells their goods. So the farmers would bring their produce to the co-op, and then they would package the carrots in bags and label it, and etc., and then sell them to supermarkets. So the members in a producer co-op, they receive their patronage dividends in proportion to the business that they conduct with the co-op. Obviously, the more vegetables you sell to the co-op, then the greater your level of business with them, and your dividends will reflect that. So in terms of producer co-ops, there's also another type. There's co-ops for the modern age. So there's platform co-ops. So platform co-ops are digital platforms that allow individuals to sell a product or service by attaining scale as a collectively owned platform, like Uber. Now, Uber is not a co-op, but I'm just using that as an example. If Uber was owned by the drivers, it would be a co-op. So you could have a group coming together to form an organization using platform co-ops. And examples of this can be seen in tourism, transportation, on-demand labor, and photography. And the photo on this slide, Stocksy, that's actually a co-op that's owned by the photographers. So looking at other examples of Canadian producer co-ops, here in Nova Scotia we've got the Christmas Tree Co-op. In Ontario there's a goat co-op, dairy goat co-op, Agripor, which is a huge dairy co-op based in Quebec, but you see their products marketed throughout Canada. And in Nova Scotia we have a fisheries and oyster co-op in Cape Breton. So there's lots of examples of producer co-ops. And the final one we have here is the multi-stakeholder co-op. So that means it's a co-op that involves both workers, consumers, producers, the community. So they're multi-stakeholder. So with multi-stakeholders, you have more than one type of member. So you have your consumers, your workers, your community representatives, etc. These co-ops are formed to achieve the goals of interest to different groups. For example, you might have a multi-stakeholder health co-op that would provide good jobs but also tailor their services to the elderly, such as patients, doctors, provincial authorities, etc. Another example of a multi-stakeholder co-op could be a food store. Again, they would provide local jobs. They would sell food to support the local farmers, so the farmers would sell their product to the co-op, and the co-op in turn would sell that food to the community. So you don't have multi-stakeholder cooperatives in every province, but there's certainly probably more in Quebec than anywhere else. And so finally we have the not-for-profit or service co-ops. So this means any surplus is reinvested in the organization. They do not issue dividends to members. Because they're not-for-profit, they don't pay income tax, and the members don't own the assets. And these are often formed to address community issues, particularly housing and daycare. So you see a couple of examples here, but this is very common in the housing and daycare sector. So just to look at the other aspect of cooperatives in terms of where they operate. So you'll find cooperatives in just about every major industry sector in Canada. You have financial, which is banking and insurance, housing, tech, food, healthcare, forestry, dairy, funeral services, media and entertainment. So they're pretty much everywhere. So in this module there's some videos that I'd like you to watch and read the notes that I've provided for you. So that concludes Module 4.